Good morning and welcome to Tuesday at DebConf. This morning we have Simon Floeth to talk about the venue, ITP, and tell us all about it. Before he does that, I'd like to remind you that to sign up for the day trip, which begins at, the sign up ends for the day trip at noon today. That's 12 o'clock today for the day trip on Thursday. And I'm now going to hand over to Simon to talk about ITP. Over to you, Simon.
Thank you, Christopher. Hello to the round and to the people listening in and watching in from around the world. Hi, I'm Simon, and a late welcome from my side to this place. Today I'm representing the Innovation and Training Park Prizren, where this conference is happening. Comparing this slot to others, it's obviously far less technical. I thought we offer kind of an opportunity to understand what is happening here. Why are you sleeping? Those of you who are physically here, sleeping in old military accommodation buildings. Is it like a little more relating what is happening in the conference to what this park is foreseen to become. And like you see, the screen is still black. It will remain black. I thought we can do it as a little bit of a conversational mode. So I don't have a speech for 45 minutes and then send you out, but I would rather like to be guided by some questions if you have, or some impressions, comments. So start with a little bit of an introduction, and then would see where it takes us, basically. I hope that's okay for everyone. Welcome. There are a lot of seats, especially in the front, so please join us here. So starting from myself, Simon Floeth, I'm living in Prizren now for pretty much exactly 1 year, working for the GIZ, in German, the Deutsche Gesellschaft für internationale Zusammenarbeit, which translates to English, the German Corporation for International Cooperation. So we're basically doing technical assistance projects in this international development slash what you called, or which still sometimes called aid project world. Goes from climate mitigation to economic development to building up social justice systems around the world, and especially here in Kosovo, focusing with our partners on partly, or one of the main focus topics is the economic development. So creating good jobs, training opportunities for employability and stuff like that. So one of these technical assistant project teams is basically sitting up in this building, 1 floor above us now, me being part of that, with the goal of bringing this place, this innovation and training park, to life, so that it actually becomes what the name would stand for. That's the main task of that team, and I would just talk a little bit briefly about the background, how that came about, how this project formed, and what is the idea for the longer term. So basically, after NATO, going back a little bit in history, without me being an expert in history, if you want to talk more about that, you will have to find someone else. But after the NATO intervened in the war with Serbia in 1999, military troops were stationed throughout. International peacekeeping troops, the so-called KFOR, Kosovo Force, were stationed within Kosovo, throughout Kosovo, for until today, to a far smaller degree. And the German troops, or mainly or under leadership of the German troops, this also former military park was reinstalled for the international troops. peaking, I think, up to hosting 3,000 troops at a time. You're seeing here now the accommodation buildings where some of you are residents in. You're seeing the old canteen where the soldiers were eating, hospitals, sport facilities, and so on. Then jumping in time a little bit, in 2018-19, the number of, so the presence, such a big presence of international troops became unnecessary, and troops were moving out and out. And this place, especially in Prizren, became unnecessary. And it became clear this park will not be used for military purposes any longer, not be needed for military purposes any longer. So what to do with it? It was clear it will be transferred to the Kosovo government after international troops were clearing it. But what can you do with such a park if you don't want to continue using it for military purposes? One idea, as it is quite a nice piece of real estate, or it could be quite a nice piece of real estate. It's like a little bit on the hill here, with the overseeing the city, not too close not too far away from the city center. One idea could be just tear it all down and build some nice villas here. But they said, okay, let's try to do something more risky, but also potentially rewarding, and using it as government property to tackle challenges we see we are currently having, which some of them being lack of high quality jobs, lack of good training opportunities, research opportunities, and especially linking research and training to market reality and applying those. It's like, okay, is there potential to use that to actually, to use this place to actually tackle our challenges, let's say. And out of that requirement, this Kosovo-German cooperation project, establishing the innovation and training park, came to life. I think the vision is quite straightforward. This place should become a place for innovation and training, especially focusing on tech-related topics, on IT, on creativity, promoting entrepreneurship, promoting researchers in topics which relate to, let's say, could make sense for the tech world, and basically creating an ecosystem around that. Not only being neighbors, but also working together. This takes a little bit of work to create that, especially first to generate first movers, to generate programs which become attractive for such entities. And we are looking into entities from, you call it the quadruple helix of innovation, from all fields, not only businesses, but then can be academia, university, it can be public entities which relate to that, and the CSOs, so NGOs from the field of creativity and innovation, and bringing them all to, or giving them this, not only this space, but helping them to co-create and work together. This is the main vision of that of this project, and now after, so begin 2019, it became, let's say, the military was moving out. It was I'm only here for 1 year, but I heard it was a horrible amount of work to just set up the structures and the legal forms on how to do that. The idea is that we start with the GIZ project, but make ourselves redundant as soon as we have, bring this place to life, let's say, and replace us, or we're building up in the meantime a management structure, local management structure, which runs independently. So create income by rent and by services, and can continue to run this place without donor money, without GIZ involvement. This is still quite some steps to go there, but this is like the long-term vision for managing the park, let's say. And besides that, of course, in the meantime, we have to make it, bring it to that state that it can be managed without public funding pouring in, let's say. And another pillar, so a lot of time after 2019 to establish, let's say, the basis to actually get started. I feel like in last summer we gained some sort of momentum and more speed, developing services and programs, getting some first interesting tenants here, a lot of interest by interesting tenants. I don't know if you have seen a university had lectures, started their lectures here last year, the UBT, University of Business and Technology. We are in process of renovating their place next door, one building for the university. So another local university just applied for establishing their knowledge transfer center here, which is a perfect fit for this, you know, taking research and relating it to the business world. We have in total 16 tenants now from the fields of creativity, IT, and some of it's like services which are interesting for IT companies and so on. So we are in this, you know, making now the small steps and actually populating the park, but more importantly, we get the clearer ideas on what needs to be in place to make it attractive for the entities we want to have here. So we conceptualized an incubation program for startups. So basically come in with an idea and bring it, turn it into a business, which is like the, let's say, so the program as a basis combined then with a co-working space, which is in renovation currently. So having, let's say, the basics ready, not only, let's say, empty buildings, but actually something meaningful which can help you, you know, start in the direction you would want to go and would want to be part of this park. And next to the, let's say, the main idea, innovation and training park, or it remains within the main idea, but we also started with a new project, or I was hired to start with that new project, which is called establishing a digital transformation center in the park. So putting a special emphasis on the digital ecosystem development, which has 3 components. We're looking into digital entrepreneurship, very much relating to this incubation program I just talked about. So taking tech ideas and turning them into businesses. There's a special emphasis on that program. Combining that and relating that to the topic of science and education. So especially working together with IT faculties, with training providers, incentivizing training providers to come here by investing in trainings ourselves, and making that attractive for companies who want to hire IT staff, and basically having also the possibility to train them right next door, let's say. And as a third pillar, to using the knowledge created, to using the IT knowledge not only for generating business with outsourcing or working with the EU and international markets, but also to improve local businesses, which is kind of identified as a little bit of a gap, because the IT, let's say IT companies are, especially the stronger ones, are very much looking into outsourcing, increasing prices for local businesses, and then they have a hard time actually, you know, using the IT knowledge to improve their own process, to become more digital, to become more competitive, and to somehow tackle that that issue by, again, creating a cooperation with universities, companies, and so on, as an offering to those companies to get an easier, cheaper access to latest technologies, basically. And so those are the 3 main pillars from, let's say, functional perspective. And then don't know if it's most importantly, but very importantly, to have this focus of creating an ecosystem around those pillars. So making the connections from how can we use what is created in science and education pillar with the demand for getting more competitive, getting more digital from the company side. How can we combine the entrepreneurial challenges with the demand created by businesses who want to become more digital, and how can we basically, that's one main advantage of this physical proximity this park would bring, how can we bring people closer together, which are normally not necessarily drinking coffee with one another and not necessarily exchanging the ideas. So I mean, the whole idea of forming these clusters in big, I mean, the most famous example is Silicon Valley, but there are, let's say, functional clusters or science and technology parks all around the world. And the main idea is always that physical proximity can lead to the creation of more innovative ideas and looking a little bit outside of the own box, exchanging ideas, and basically coming to co-creation. And that accompanying that not only by, let's say, having the right people as tenants or as members of the park, but also having meaningful events like this one, having residents who are coming and going, so basically contributing to that knowledge sharing ideas by, and especially then international or international knowledge exchange by bringing in events like this one and bringing another vibe into this area. This is kind of the last, okay, combining these pillars and allowing or fostering meaningful exchange. This is, let's say, another main task we would see ourselves in, at least trying to push it a little bit, trying to support it a little bit. Because this could then in the end be, let's say, a great asset to the park compared to just being somewhere in a city center. That's how we see it. So, having said that, I'm really happy, really grateful that we have this event here, because this is what we would like to see here more often. Of course, then we need also more attendance to have this exchange in a better way. But this, in the end, can, it builds up itself if there are more meaningful events, more meaningful tenants, and it gets more interesting. That's the whole idea. So thank you all for being here. I very much hope you have a good time so far, and I would be really looking forward to some comments from your end, some questions to what I just said, whatever is on your mind, basically.
Simon, thank you for being here. So I have a couple of questions, especially being from here. That's why I'm quite interested. Oh, sorry. Yes. So I remember when I met the Prime Minister like a couple of months ago, and we were discussing interoperability, digital interoperability, whatever this word is. So between ministries and municipalities, and like they have this hard communication. For example, I need to go to get a paper at the ministry, I need to go to get a paper at the municipality, where it can all be very linked. So what I want to know is, and he explained that they are doing this, fixing it following the Estonian system, which I'm not very familiar with. So what interests me is, what book are you following? What system are you following to do all the great things you mentioned? You mentioned you want more conferences here. You mentioned you want to turn ideas into business, having more people, having more startups. So is GIZ inventing stuff based on maybe previous experiences based all over the world, or do you follow innovation and training sparks somewhere? What's the exact strategy that you're following. So
Okay.
I have more questions, but
All right.
let's go with this one.
Thank you for this one. I know the Estonian, I mean, coming back to the origin of the question, the Estonian government, or especially their digital component within the e-services they are delivering, the opportunities they deliver for tech entrepreneurs are quite famously good around the world, and they also show that and export that in a little bit, and to a good reason. I think they also now, like you said, they will be engaged also to help or support the development here. But I'm quite sure to whatever Estonian expert in the field you would talk, he would also tell you there is no copy-paste. So for sure there's no buy the book of the Estonian, do it here in Kosovo as well. That was tried and it usually fails. So it's normally, most of the work is always adapting what has been successful somewhere else. If you either reinvent the wheel, no, not the wheel, but something else, or you try to adapt the wheel to your local challenges and needs. And but of course you can take, let's say, examples or a book to be guided by. In our case, the origin was a study based on a Berlin park, Atlashof was called. It was taken as an example, but it was honestly, let's say, it's hard to here it's even harder to compare and say one-to-one we do the same. It became very clear during the study we cannot copy that approach. We are having learnings from that, but doing it by that book will likely fail. So what we rather do is now looking into pieces of, so some of it is basically we try to reinvent and make sense of by ourselves and exchanging with engagement of the ecosystem. So for example, we had a round table here inviting local potential tenants or partners and getting ideas from them how the development could, for example, in this case it was a physical development, how that could be turned into more useful for them. And besides that, it's looking for, we have an overall there was this overall picture developed how it should look like, and then one element of it is, let's say, entrepreneurship support, and then we look for entrepreneurship support. What could be key elements here? One is, let's say, an incubation program, and then we see where is a really relatable incubation program, where is there anything we can learn from. For this incubation program, for example, we engaged, not in Estonian, but Lithuanian experts by chance here to help establishing this concept. Again, not copy-paste, but in close collaboration with the implementing partner here, looking into the ecosystem, see what can we learn from the Lithuanian example, what do we have to do differently, and then developing this program together. So it's mainly us and making the connection, not us as the Germans or the GIZ who are saying this is how the program should look like, but more like, okay, we engage the experts who actually did that for 20 years quite successfully, bring them here and have them develop the project. This is one example. For service offerings, for example, we are now looking into what could be meaningful services for the tenants, potential tenants we are looking for. What is a good basis for what would be attractive to have for them, and we exchange with, in this case, a Slovenian. He was based in a Slovenian science and technology park, developing services there. So taking this Slovenian experience again, starting with analysis of the local ecosystem, and then saying, okay, how can we relate that? And if we can, we use the local. I mean, it's always combined with local knowledge. It's never only international knowledge. That doesn't make sense. But if we can, we just also stick with the local knowledge only and say, okay, what would you do? What is your experience? If the experience exists in that field, taking it in. This is also why it takes a little longer than just me sitting in my office and defining services like I would see fit. But we hope it's then again some good combination of doing it by a book and having actually meaningful and contextual application here. Was that covering your question, or okay?
I see that you have a great plan, or you seem to quite know what GIZ is doing and the goals, but as far as I understand, you try to cooperate more with institutions or organizations, or like a group of people that already knows what they are doing. Like you are seeking for tenants to come here, you are seeking for startups. How do you reach out, or is there a plan to reach out to people, to simple students, to people who aren't really set up for something? Maybe they have a job at some company, but not something they're leading on their own. Do you have a plan to help them become startups, or help them make their ideas into businesses when they haven't really formed something? Because there's a high potential in our colleges. So yeah, maybe you have an approach to that.
Yeah. One approach is working together with career offices in universities. So basically not replicating or creating something new which is existing, but rather trying to make them more effective and linking it to potential programs. So if you say, we have this offering, but who is coming for an incubation program? If they're, you have to bring them to a stage where they're ready to say, I actually want to build a startup myself, and I want to enter this program, which is kind of a commitment you would have to make, and you have to be at least ready to a certain degree to do that. And now saying, no, I will not enter the employment, or I will not stick in my employment, but risk a little bit of, well, it is quite a risk to say, no, I will now go in this direction. So career offices would be one option. We don't have it clear now and defined and ready now, but career offices would be one solution. Another one is reach out events and simple, let's say, it falls into this direction of, some call it student incubation, where you're not really committing to, I'm now part of an incubation program for the next year, but you're really just like playing around with ideas and fostering that. So basically having it's similar components to what an incubation program have, but much smaller, where you basically just learn what is a business model? How can you define that? What is needed in a business world? What is your typical day as an entrepreneur, or as someone who is creating an startup in the first year? What are your tasks? It's not only technical. You will not only sit around doing code, but you will have to think of a lot more. What do you need? How do you engage investors? How do you form a team, and so on? To have this in a very small scale. We have one out of this service study. One suggestion is setting up a startup school, which would go in this direction. Another one is, or another one we took from I don't know where, is looking, having this early stage student incubation with. From an example in Albania, actually, working together with the universities and having these idea challenges within universities, and then having, let's say, bringing them together in one big festival of some days, and say, now we look into the ideas and see and celebrate the winners. And if there's any, basically just you're becoming an entrepreneur on a trial basis within your study frame, and the risk is far lower, and you see what it would be like, and then you can still see, is this for me or not? Those are some of the approaches, but for sure what is clear is that we cannot wait that people come with a ready idea and committed to become entrepreneurs, but you also have to do some work in bringing them to a stage where they want to take that risk and to make that risk less of a risk. So trying to, cover some expenses in the first year when the startup is very likely to fail and not generating income. But this requires then a connection to funding opportunities, and this is all kind of complex but needed. Yeah, but it's for sure it is needed, and we are looking also in this very early stage.
Thank you. And I have my last question. Sorry for taking the time for others. How exactly do you cooperate with the government? I know you cooperate well, but on strategic planning, what goes on, or are you two extremely different entities? I mean, you must know their plan. I hope they have a plan. So how do you work out with them?
The local government or
The
the
local government,
okay.
the Republic of
So
Kosovo government.
one big portion of it is they co-finance this whole project to a very large degree. So for example, their commitment that this place should become an innovation and training park, and the belief that this works and the way we are doing it works. On operational basis, this is managed by us, but we are overseen by the ITP assembly, which is constituted by government representatives and so German government representatives and Kosovo government representatives, and they make the major decisions. So we are preparing them. Every tenant which comes in here goes through that assembly. So we basically say, here's a company doing blockchain trainings. We think it's a perfect fit because it relates to tech and it's training. They have a sound business model and they want to rent, I don't know, one floor in one of those buildings. We would highly recommend it, but we still have to go through their, let's say, approval, saying, yes, this is what we want to do. And the same with, like, let's say, major decisions. They all, like, steered, or not steered, but approved by this board. So there's still this, let's say, justification towards this higher body we are doing as a project. So this is, like, say, the official cooperation part, where they say, okay, they are a donor of the project themselves or a financier and have an oversight role. And then I'm seeing the government more and more, ministries, more and more trying to engage themselves with products they have or whatever they're doing anyway to that park here. For example, Ministry of Economy is building up the Kosovo Research and Education Network, which is, first of all, the data center providing services to schools and universities around the country. But second, it is a team which assists the implementation, the rollout of those services and enabling schools and universities to do that. That's a government project. And they said, having those people working, in the rollout of such a service and having the physical infrastructure of that within the park makes sort of sense. So it is built up here next door. This is kind of a, then not being part of the official project from the beginning, but it's how the government also jumps in with ideas they're having and seeing this, that's quite a fit in promoting that place. I know that they will expand also with investing in infrastructure. They have some training rooms there, which then can be used by the community. And then it's on us again to come up with meaningful concepts that community, like training providers, can actually make use of those training programs. Or they have industrial 3D printers here, which are already used by universities to test the theory they learned in the classes. So they were clear they wanted to build up infrastructure for, let's say, research, testing purposes, and training purposes. I said, okay, let's do it here in the park. I know that haven't materialized now, but again, it's like a lot of movement happened in the last year, I would say, that there are ideas on investing also in the startup support direction, where, like I said, the first year of creating a startup normally will not be funded by a private investor, or so either you have some money on the bank or family to back you up, or you will have a hard time living in the meanwhile. So to actually find some investment for higher risk startups, some public funding for that. There are some ideas, of course, that could then not only be related to the ITP, it's not the only recipient, but if you want to bring such a place to life, if you want to have entrepreneurs here, it also makes sense to just link the such programs you want to do anyway to that park. So this is the overall strategy is they are highly involved in decision making and financing, and the, let's say, beyond that, what you could call a strategy is see what you're doing and align it with what could make sense to align with this park. If it's support programs, or is it actually building up infrastructure and teams which fit here. Yeah. Another part which we haven't tackled so far, but which makes sense and we will try to explore more, is coming with public challenges, which is a typical, I mean, let's say public innovation challenges, let's say. So you look into your system, your Estonian, here more paper-based system, and you say, we want to go closer to this all e-services. How could we actually do that? And this is not defined within a government. This is co-defined with people who are actually knowing how to digitalize processes. So why not, bring them together here, creating the demand. Then you have somebody who pays for actually service, which can lead to a startup surviving the first year or building a business model out of that. So this is a third, let's say, component I would see where we can or should go more in the collaboration with the government side, but it's not on the government so far. It's more like we have to have the structures in place that we can absorb those challenges and actually turn them into businesses. But this is something we would explore further.
Thank you, Simon. I have a last one, but I'll wait. No, I'll wait. I'll give the mic to someone else, and I'll wait for my last question if someone else wants to.
Okay. Valmir from PLUS. I mean, because we have been kind of coming... Mike? Okay. We have been coming quite, how to say, often here in ITP, and we have been seeing ITP development, I mean, since 3 years or something. So this is our second conference, and next year we probably are going to organize another big conference, FOSS4G. So, I mean, we see that there is improvement, especially now that there is a lot of people around from your side. But, I mean, where do you see, I mean, my question is more based on future. So what to expect from ITP after 3 years, let's say? I mean, more building, or let's say a micro city, so people do not have like to go out of this place, let's say they have everything here, or I mean, can you give us, let's say, can you tell us more something about that? In 3 years, we're gonna have this, because what we were facing right now, we were facing lack of, I mean, infrastructure. You mentioned Lithuanian. I don't know if you, I mean, they were like, years ago they were saying that they reached the fastest internet in Lithuania. So we are missing internet infrastructure here, for example. But in spite of that, there are other things that are missing. So when we come back, let's say in 3 years, what we will see here.
All right. This is on tape now, so making promises. No, I think if you have asked somebody 3 years ago, they would be more optimistic in what the state would be now. I think COVID played a little bit of a role, and another role is just it takes quite some time. I was a little bit relieved talking to some of the, there's people from other parks, hearing them, it took us like 10 years to come to a state where they said now it's it's not even self-sustainable, but it's full. It's really lively and really, this is what we want to see. As I said, 20 years, I don't hope for 20 years. I think seeing the, let's say, motivation of people now, and then the commitment also, for example, from the government, but also from a lot of local entities who say, I would really like to see this place thriving. I think we will be faster, let's say. So an optimistic view on in 3 years, I would say we have daily, we already have that, but more 500 students here coming and going to having classes. Obviously good restaurant services. The accommodation services will be, let's say, we will probably not have a hotel, like a 4-star hotel, but let's say more, serious accommodation services, let's say. Right now it's a little bit of a, let's say it was a private bathroom. Maybe we'll also keep some with a shared bathroom, actually, because it depends on the, like I said, I don't think we go for high class here. It should not become a resort of some sort. But to offer the services for events, I think, or for international students, for example, I think we will keep that in place. But most of the accommodation buildings will be turned or dedicated to offices. I think in 3 years we are not, let's say, full, but I think we will have a number of serious and also a number of at least locally more well-known companies in. We now have quite some good talks, both from creative side as well as IT side, who just need like this little spark. And we are now building up this, let's say, this small incentives, which should lead to them moving in. I think we will have a good training offering here by then. So you basically go to the website, and especially in digital skills, this is my field, so I would say in digital skills, we will have a good training offering here where you can see and go and see, okay, soft skills training needed for my employees. So I have this typical Scrum trainings available. I have longer term, really, so there will be upskilling for employees, but also longer term, let's say, coding school to actually develop the talent which is now needed by the IT companies. I think we will have regular events in a renovated event hall. So there's quite some life here. Restaurant services and cafes more than now. And all you need to, talking a little bit about the city within the city, right? So the accommodation I would strike out. I don't think we want to occupy too much space with permanent accommodation. Maybe some of the buildings remain for such festivals. But other than that, there should be a small shop here. I think there should be an ATM here, maybe some sort of banking service, but we rather see like we have a special, let's say, special contracts with local service providers, may that be legal services, marketing services, banking services, so which are offered to the tenants of that park. So you basically say, if you're an international company setting up a shop here, you will have the contacts ready to set up the needed structures, an account to register your business and so on, and so all referred by the park itself. So the services should be ready if they are here physically or not. In that sense, not too important. Yeah. And okay, you were asking about building and so on. I think more is then colored and renovated. Like I said, the existing infrastructure is used. I think we will mainly focus on the existing infrastructure. One building will be built next to this small coffee shop, La Baita. There's an empty space. There we will have a new fancy building. But not too much other, like I don't see skyscrapers coming out here. We would rather first fill up the space we already have. Okay, I have like 4 minutes left. Yeah.
Yeah, just a quick comment. First of all, thanks for supporting the event. It's quite important for us that you are providing the space and doing this, and also supporting our friends from FLOSC. This is my second. It's the third time here, but it's my second event related to open source technologies and open access. So it's quite important. I'm come from Tirana, and my question would be, like, I'm using the Estonian e-residency services, and I've also seen this mentioned from the Albanian government because I lived there before. So I have a déjà vu of ways of approaches of, you know, copying this and copying that. Hopefully it works for here. But I think I agree with you that just copy pasting, it's not the way to go. Again, based on what I've seen in Albania and not here. I just wanted to say that this is, as a place, is quite amazing. So I would advise, I would propose to you to also reach to other cities, especially from Tirana. There are people that don't know that this place exists, which means that they have companies and they have like organizations. I think they would quite like to use the facilities, not only as facilities, but also with the services that you mentioned before. Third comment, I'm also happy that FLOSC and you are thinking to host the FOSS4G next year. It's another important event. So it will be, I would propose to have more contacts with the region so that more people get to come here. It's very easy to come here, especially from Tirana, but also, I guess, from Skopje or other cities. So I think it has the potential to gather more than just Prizren and Pristina and Kosovo in general. So thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. I take it as a comment, but the suggestion is taken, and yes, we will look into the region as well. I think this space is quite big if you really keep this narrow focus on innovation and tech-related companies. So I think, yeah, people from Tirana are more than welcome to here as well. Thank you. All right.
Thank you very much, Simon, for sharing your vision for ITP. There's been lots of great questions. I hope you'll be around for a few minutes afterwards to answer the questions that the audience haven't had a chance to answer. I've loved being here. This room's got about seats for about 100 people. The main hall must be about 500 people, I guess.
If you squeeze them in, yeah, we always say 300, but let's say...
It's a lovely venue, 15, 20 minutes walk from the town centre. I've really enjoyed it. It'd be great for an academic conference. I'd look forward to coming back in the future. But if we'd like to say thank you to Simon for his great talk.